Today we're going to write equations in slope-intercept form, then we're going to graph the given line, the line given by the equation. So let's take a look at some of the problems that we will experience on tonight's homework, starting with letter A. Here we have an equation that's already in that slope-intercept form. For the slope-intercept form, if you recall from yesterday, goes this way. It's the y equals mx plus b. So that's what it is. Y equals mx plus b. So remember, the m stands for our slope. So this term right here is our slope. And the b represents the y-intercept. So when the equation has y by itself, we already know what the y-intercept is and the slope. So this term right here, this represents our y-intercept. So we'll say y-intercept equals -6. So what that means is we're going to go down 6 spaces on the y-axis. So there's 2, 4, 6 right there. And so that's our first point. That's our starting point. Then we're going to use the slope. So remember, the slope is what changes x. It's the number being multiplied by x. In this case, 2/5. So that represents our slope. So we'll just say slope equals 2/5. And that's what's changing x. So remember, the 2, since it's positive, tells us that we're going to end up going up 2 spaces. 5, since it's positive, tells us we're going to go right. So remember, slope represents the change of y, how much we're going to change in the y direction, over the change of x. So what that tells us is that we're going to go up 2 spaces. So we go up 1, 2 over 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we can put a dot right there. And if we had space, we'd do it again. We'd go up 2 and then over 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's somewhere out in this range here. We could also go the other way. We could go down 2 and then over 5 this way. So if I went down 2, I'd go 1, 2. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I can go down 2 and left 5 because I could rewrite that slope as -2 over -5. And the -2 would tell me to go down, and then the -5 would tell me to go to the left. So once I have those points, you just connect them with a line. So we'll have our answer then. So it's real important to make sure it goes right through that y-intercept. You got that as your starting point, and then using the slope, remembering that y is always on top and x is on the bottom. Now let's take a look at the next one. We've got an equation. It's already in the slope-intercept form. Y is by itself. That's the key. When y is by itself, then we know it's in slope-intercept form. This number right here, this is what? Hopefully remember that is our y-intercept. It's what we have left over when we set x equal to 0. So if you cancel this term out, you make this 0, y equals 1. So that's called our y-intercept, and that number is 1. So what that tells us is we're going to go up 1 space on the y-axis. Then we have our slope. Slope is what changes the x values each time. So what changes x is the number being multiplied by x. It's -3. So that represents our slope. So our slope we can write as a fraction. If we don't see the number as a fraction, what number can you put on the bottom? Hopefully you said 1. And so what this -3 tells us to do is it tells us to go down 3 spaces. The +1 tells us to go to the right 1 space. So if I do that a few times, let's say I go down 1, 2, 3 over 1. There's a point. Do it again, you got 1, 2, 3 over 1. One more time. Go 1, 2, 3 over 1. It's about right there. Now we can also go the other way, because we can switch those signs of both the top of the fraction, the numerator, and the denominator. So negative 3 over 1 is the same as 3 over negative 1. But it tells us to do something different. It tells us to go up 3 and then left 1, because the positive 3 in the y is up. Negative 1 in the x is left. So I can go up 1, 2, 3 over 1. And that gets us on the same line. 1, 2, 3 over 1. Then we have enough points to draw that line. So again, we try to line up our ruler right alongside it and just draw that line down between those points. So the difference between those problems and the ones we have next are that y is not by itself. In order to use this method, we need to get y by itself. So here we don't have it by itself, so we're going to do some operations to get y by itself. First thing I'm going to do is subtract 2x from both sides. And that just about gets the y by itself. However, we'll have one more operation. So when I rewrite my problem, always bring down the signs. That's a common error right there, is people don't bring down that sign in front of the term. Now, I don't want to write 4 minus 2x. I want it in this form up here, where it's y equals the slope times x plus the y-intercept. So I'm going to write down negative 2x plus 4. So you see how 4 is positive. I'm subtracting 2x. That's why it's a minus 2x first. Well, from this point, we just have one more step, at least to get y by itself. That's to get rid of this negative sign. So to get rid of that negative sign, I'm going to divide or multiply by a negative. And what happens then is all the signs in the entire equation will change. It becomes a positive y, and then this equals positive 2x now, and a minus 4. So now we're ready to graph. So all we need to do is figure out what the y-intercept is. So remember, the y-intercept is the number that's being added or subtracted from the x term when y is by itself. So here we have our y-intercept equals negative 4. Then we have our slope. So remember, the slope is the number that is changing x. So the number that's changing x each time is 2. That's being multiplied by the x term. That is our slope. I'm going to use m for slope here. And the slope is 2. Now I want to write 2 as a fraction. So I'm going to write that as 2 over 1. And then we can go ahead and write down what that means. The 2 up top tells us we're going to go up 2 spaces. The 1 on the bottom tells us that we're going to go right 1 space. And then we can go ahead and graph those points. So we'll start with that y-intercept. So I'll go down 4 spaces on that y-axis, put a dot right there, and then use the slope to graph the other points. So the slope tells me to go up 2 over 1 to the right, up 2 over 1 to the right, up 2, 1 to the right, up 2, 1 to the right, up 2, 1 to the right. I could also go the other way. I could end up going down 2, 1 to the left, because a negative over a negative makes a positive. And so then I would go down 2, 1 to the left, down 2, 1 to the left. And then from there, I can draw that line. So when I do that, sketch that line right through those points. Well, one more problem similar to the last one, in which we need to get the y by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to eliminate or move that x from the left-hand side and move it to the right. So I'm going to subtract 3x from all sides. And when I do that, I've got y Now, almost by itself, I just need to eliminate that coefficient in front of that variable. Now remember, write it as negative 3x plus 6. Negative 3x because we're subtracting the x term, and this is a positive 6 because there's no sign in front. Now we want to eliminate that coefficient. So just like I divided by negative 1 on the last problem, here I'm going to divide by 2 on this problem. Now the key is divide every number by 2, including this x term. However, we're not going to write it as a mixed number. We're going to write it as an improper fraction. So what's left over? We have y equals, and then negative 3/2 x. So this is a fraction. We want to keep this as a ratio, the rise over the run. So don't change it to a mixed number or decimal. And then it's plus 3, not 6, because I had to do that division. So we remember that our slope is the number that's changing x. So this is the number that's changing x. That is our slope. So m equals 3. And our y-intercept, that's the number that we start with. So we start with 3. That is our y-intercept. And so we'll go ahead and plot that positive 3 up 1, 2, 3. And let's see if I go up 1, 2, 3. I went up too many. So let's erase that point. So I go up 1, 2, 3. And then I use the slope to graph the other points. So here I'm going down 3. Now this is oops, I wrote the slope wrong there. Negative 3 over 2. Hopefully you caught that mistake. So that negative 3 tells me I need to go down 3, but I'm going to go right 2 spaces. So down 3. So I go 1, 2, 3, and then 2 to the right. Do that again. I go 1, 2, 3, 2 to the right. Down 3, 1, 2, 3, 2 to the right. You could also go the other way. Remember, this slope, this negative 3 over 2, is the same as 3 over negative 2, and that tells me to do something different. This would be up 3, 1, 2, 3, and then over 2 to the left. And that gets me on that same line. And then from there we can go ahead and draw the line between the points. And we've got ourselves our line. So that's what we're going to be doing to graph lines using slope and y-intercept. We're going to do one more problem in part 2, in which we will have a problem that involves some words and try to figure out what the slope would represent and what the y-intercept would represent.